Hey guys, in this video I want to kind of go over how to kind of get your hips open enough or strong enough for Galavasana, or the English term flying pigeon, right? I had this question come up in one of the trainings I was in last month. A student came up to me and was asking me, I feel like I have flexible enough hips. I feel like I'm strong enough, but I can't get my hips into Galavasana. So I'll show Galavasana real quick, just so you have a reference of what I'm talking about. Right, you cross the ankle over, you come into, you hook the right foot around the left tricep, lean forward, press that right knee into the right tricep, lean forward. You come up here, this is a version, and then bringing it up higher is a version, okay? But what I see are my recommendations for opening up the hip for this pose is to do some eccentric strengthening to the hip. And what I mean by that is when we're lengthening the outer hip to get that range of motion, we're also adding a little bit of a strength component to it. So we're turning those muscles on as they stretch. And the reason for it is pretty simple, right? I might be able to get my hip in position if I press my thigh down and open the hip. But when I have my hands on the mat for the pose, I don't have anything to open this hip up on its own. So this hip has to learn how to open itself up. And then once it's open, hold it in the shape so that way I can maintain my leg on my triceps. Right? So just passively stretching, coming into pigeon and just laying here, feeling good. It's creating a passive range of motion in this hip. It feels good. There's a lot of benefits to passively stretching. But for this specific arm balance, I have my own opinions on whether you should be opening the hip passively or eccentrically, but I'll leave that for another video. But for this specific arm balance, passive openness in the hip is not going to keep the leg in position. We need to make sure that it's strong enough that once it's open, and that it can open itself up, and then once it's open, that it can maintain its shape. So when I'm in pigeon, I'm actually going to be pressing this shin bone down. When you're on your arms in Galavasana, you're pressing the shin bone into the triceps, so you need this action anyways of, can I use my right outer hip to press my shin down, and then to find this hook, right, and maintain that hook. I actually, in my pigeon, want to pull my shin back to the right. So I'm getting used to that action in a little bit more accessible pose here in pigeon of pressing the shin bone down. Okay, I'm getting that action. I'm feeling my outer hip. I'm stretching it, I'm opening it up, but it's also strengthening. And then I'm also pulling the foot back to the right. So when I hook my foot around my tricep in Galavasana, I can hold it there without it slipping down. I can maintain this and fold, come a little bit deeper to get more openness through the hip, but I'm not losing the shin bone pressing down and the shin bone pulling to the right. So if I'm teaching Galavasana in a class, I'll incorporate this action-based pigeon versus just let's get into pigeon, let's open the hip up. Opening the hip up is a great thing, but for an arm balance where we need that hip to hold itself in position, just being passively open isn't going to help you in this pose, right? So one option when you're working towards Galavasana is anytime you're opening up this outer hip, especially in pigeon, press the shin bone down, pull the shin to the right, make the outer hip engaged. Same thing can be said in a one-legged Utkatasana or a figure four ankle to knee pose, right? I'm flexing the foot just like I would in Galavasana. And instead of going here, which is a nice thing to do and it feels really good, I'm actually going to use my outer hip and press the knee down. I may even take my right arm around my right knee and pull up a little bit and then use my right outer hip to press the knee down. So that muscle is getting used to activating and pressing down. Same thing here. I may just take my right hand into my right foot or my left hand in my right foot, press the hand into the foot into the hand. So now the outer leg is working to create these create the resistance in these poses, right? So anytime I'm doing that stretch, I'm not just passively stretching in a one-legged chair. I'm using my outer hip to press the knee down. I'm not coming here and using external leverage, because if my hands are on the mat, I have no external leverage to get that hip open. It needs to learn how to open itself up. And then the last one, the easiest one to find or to get your legs strong enough, right, your outer hip strong enough. It says you come into reclined pigeon. You can do this while you're watching TV. This is the easiest way to get to kind of strengthen the outer hip and also be comfortable, because that pigeon one can be a little bit uncomfortable if you're constantly having to use force. But if you're drawing this knee in, instead of using your hands, just take your right outer hip and press your right knee forward. So instead of taking the hand and pressing, I'm using the outer hip and loosening itself up, while at the same time I'm strengthening it because I'm using it to press the knee forward. And then at the same time I'm drawing my left knee into my chest. All right, so opposing actions, but the legs are doing themselves. Doing these strength-based hip openers is going to get you closer to getting that arm balance than it is to just passively stretch, right? Because if I, again, show it, if I bring my hands to the mat, I can't use anything to press that hip open besides itself. So that hip needs to be strong and it needs to be open. But once I get that hip open and strong, I plant my hands. I don't plant my hands straight down. I can't touch the mat if I just reach straight down. I can't get all the way down. I reach forward. This is also going to get this foot light. So I lean forward. I press the shin, just like I do in pigeon, into my triceps, and then I pull my foot back to the right. So you can kind of see I'm hooking that elbow tightly, and then I just think crow from here. Lean forward. And then again, I can straighten it back, which I can think is harder, or I can straighten it up. Let me know what you think. Namaste.